Okay, good afternoon, Jan and/or Luke. I'm going to sort of do a combination of the couple of things that you guys have shown us over the last couple of weeks here. I decided to try to express the designing or creating of a discussion through this Mindomo, just because it seemed to make most sense to me as a graphic organizer. That's probably the social studies teacher in me. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and show you this in sort of a limited view. I'm not going to use my entire screen. And you'll see more specifically why in a second I chose to do this. And of course I'm doing this through Screencast-O-Matic so that I can overlay my thoughts in the process. And then I will upload this. So I've been thinking about doing almost an entire course based on essential questions that's even driven outside of the prepackaged curriculum that we get from Connections Learning. And I've actually referenced this in my reflection from last week. I tell my kids that everything in their textbook or everything that we're going to study is political in nature, and politics in its most basic definition is a struggle for power. And so just about everything you see in that textbook is a struggle for power, and power is typically defined or shaped by people fighting over land or money. And just about everything you can tie back to land and money in a struggle for power. So I'd love to derive that as sort of an essential question or thought that then drives everything else that we study and ties back to everything else we study throughout the course of a year. And in this case, we're talking about immigration as power. And I would love to do a discussion based on, and I will most likely actually use this semester because I'm not a fan of the discussion prompts that we're given in again the prepackaged curriculum. So I would love to do a discussion based around specifically political cartoons. I love political cartoons for inspiring thought and analysis, and of course just giving us something significant to talk about, and often something that's a current event type issue to talk about as well, something that ties back to the relevant world of today. So here are my main portions. I'm going to start here by showing you the discussion prompt itself. What I was hoping to do is upload an image of the political cartoon I want to use, but unfortunately you've got to pay $36.99 or something like that for the year. I will see about getting my school to pop for the premium upgrade when school starts. There is some money set aside for us to use for new softwares, and I may advocate for just upgrading most of these things like Screencast and Mindomo for the full software so that I can actually upload the images I already have on my computer. So instead, this is why I'm using Screencast-O-Matic. Here is an image that I've pulled down from the internet. It's one I've used before. It's a really funny, tongue-in-cheek, ironic cartoon, as most of them are by design. And so this is a place I'd like to go to get the kids thinking about immigration. Where we live, we have a typically conservative uh, base of students, I guess you would say, and so most of them, most likely because of their parents' opinions and feelings, are supporting um, an increase in immigration of some sort. And quite honestly, it's not necessarily something I am against. So it's more just about providing alternative perspectives. And of course, this in the big picture is a little bit more of a left-leaning, I would say, liberal concept of what we're doing here. It's just sort of putting it back in our face about how we might view immigration. And so it's of course using irony, and I would love to have the kids play with this and see what sort of discussions come about, not just their own critical thinking and in the original posts, but the way they would respond to one another's posts. So this is the image I would have uploaded here in Mindomo. Okay, and so for the discussion prompt, you've got 3 discussion prompts increasing in depth and complexity. This is something we're focusing on this year with Common Core, is how we use our texts and then how the questions we ask should be going deeper as they go through, sort of in levels. I think it's levels 1 through 5, I forget exactly, but I would say this is 3 questions that increase in complexity that the kids would have to answer, and they would have to answer all 3 for full credit. And I'll get to the guidelines for that here in just a second. Um, So these are the questions they would look. What signs or symbols are being used to communicate that the early European explorers were not welcome? So this is just dealing with what they physically see in the picture and beginning to put the pieces of the puzzle together in terms of their meaning. And then the next one, going a little deeper, how might those in the boat feel by what they are seeing, hearing, and experiencing? So this begins to deal with the perspective of the European explorers again, and what their thoughts would be after coming all the way across the ocean after making several months in a journey. And of course it's an arduous journey and to be met with resistance. And then finally, how does this artist or author use irony to highlight issues related to U.S. policy on immigration today? Of course, dealing with the borders and boundaries that we're setting up with actual physical walls between, say, Mexico and the United States, and how that might be received by both people on both sides of the border. So tying the past to the present, of course, and then trying to increase in text complexity and forcing the kids to use pieces of the image itself or the text written in the image to support their answer. Okay, and we'll come on over here to the grading scale. That's probably where I should actually finish, but I don't want to change this recording. So we'll do a 1 to 5, kind of like an AP score. 1 to 2 points is going to be, of course, your minimal response. Maybe they only responded to one of the questions, which I actually often have happen with some of my kids. When they're rushing, they don't pay attention, and they only respond to one of the 3 questions that's given. So making sure they respond to all of them. Of course, using support from the image itself, not just a quick response based on personal opinion, but using pieces of the text or pieces of the image to support their answer. And then of course responding, creating their own original post and then responding to the students' posts as well. And then of course 2 to 3 points and 4 to 5 points is just going to be increasing in quality and quantity on all of the guidelines that are listed here. And because I've gone out of order, showing you the guidelines now is essentially going to be just showing you each of those things that was just in the grading scale in specific detail. So the deadline, they're going to have 1 week, and I would assign that week and give specific dates. And then the students must respond to all 3 prompts, not just 1 or 2 of them. And then a minimum of 2 sentences per prompt. That's probably a little bit low, but to start, if I were giving, I probably wouldn't give them this as a discussion for their first discussion because it has so many moving parts to it. But eventually we would add up, add more responses than just 2 sentences per response. And then for the action, they'd have to do original response or post plus reply to at least 2 other posts, which is usually the typical response or requirement. And then a value, I'd like to create as many as 8 of these. There are typically about 4 or 5 in each course, but again, the value of those discussions that in the prepackaged curriculum is just, they're not good. And so I'd like to create my own and substitute for those, which I should have the ability to do. I can remove assessments from our prepackaged, and I can create new ones, so hopefully I can make it work. I may have to use Screencast-O-Matic though to make it fit a little bit better with more specific instructions. So there would be 8 discussions, a total of 20% of the overall grade, and so this would probably be just a portion of that 20%. Okay? All right, so there are your guidelines. Again, we have the discussion prompt, and then we have the grading scale based on 1 to 5 points, and then this would be my immigration is political. This might be just one in a series of discussions. Maybe I would do 2 or 3 different discussions. This could of course be a series on different portions of what is political. War is political, immigration is political, policy is political, legislation is political, and so forth. So I hope this helps display what I would do with creating a discussion prompt. And I look forward to actually using this as a specific tool, not just a tool, but the actual piece of a curriculum in this coming semester. Thank you very much.